Welcome back to r/Neighbors from Hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. This one is titled Paying Our Slumlord the Rent Before Coinstar Was a Thing. When I was a kid in the 80s, you could rent a 3-bedroom house for $700. I think it may have been a little less than that, but it was around that much. Also, I have to assume that this was a completely illegal rental anyway, because there's no way in hell this place would ever pass an inspection. The yard alone was pretty big, but it was covered in 6 feet plus tall weeds and poison ivy. It took months to clean it up. The house itself was even worse. We had black stains on the walls and ceilings from soot coming out of the heating vent. Our cesspool was clogged, so instead of actually having something done to fix it, the landlord just decided to shovel a massive hole alongside of it, so it was just one really big crap pit, which smelled amazing in summer. We had running water from a well, but it came out of the faucets red and brown because the inside of the well was completely rusted. We would bring huge water bottles to my grandpa's to fill up with water. The well also froze in winter, so our neighbors were nice enough to let us attach long hoses to their outside spigots so we would have water. But the worst was when the wall alongside the bathtub collapsed because it never had any insulation in it, and it was so badly made that the rain had slowly been rotting through the siding and into the plasterboard until it just gave out. For weeks the landlord would not fix it, and my mom was super pissed because she had 2 young children that she had to bathe, so we ended up having to take them at our grandfather's, which was a 40-minute drive each way. So my mom and my stepfather decided that they were not going to pay the rent until the wall was fixed, and the landlord countered by saying that he was not going to get it fixed until we paid the rent. My stepfather and grandfather had several of those really big water bottles filled with change. They had been saving them up for years and years. And this was back when they didn't have Coinstar, so you would have to go to the bank, get the paper sleeves, and then put each and every coin into the rolls and then drive all of them back to the bank. The change in those jars were mostly pennies, nickels and dimes because we used the quarters at the laundromat. So finally my stepfather tells the landlord that he can come by and pick up the rent money, and he said that he apologizes, but some of it is in change because money's been tight a little bit. My stepfather said that it was mostly quarters though, and the landlord agreed to it because some money is better than no money. My stepfather had put all the change in boxes just to make it even more inconvenient trying to get them in and out of the car. He wheeled all the boxes out, stacked up on a dolly, and loaded them into the back of the landlord's car. Every time he put a box on top of the other, he would hold them up at chest level and just let them drop, so some of the sides of the boxes split and the change just fell out all over his trunk. They were so heavy that every time he dropped the box, the back of the car started dipping lower and lower. They were also yelling at each other while this was going on. I don't know what was said because we were watching from inside the house, but it was funny as hell to watch. When the landlord drove away, the back end of his car was so weighed down that it dragged and sparked. Shortly thereafter, the landlord managed to get an entire new piece of plasterboard to cover the hole in the wall, which of course was the bare minimum, but it was better than having to view the crap pit outside every time we had to take a bath. Edit: a lot of people wanted to know where I live because this was still a lot of rent to be paying even back then. It was in New York, which is a ridiculously expensive place to live. And indeed guys, for the 80s, $700 for rent sounds like quite a lot if you ask me. And in addition, Ripe Stars, I'm curious, since many of my viewers are from different states in the United States, I am wondering how much rent are you guys paying? Obviously, that is one of the big advantages of living in Southeast Asia, or in my case in Thailand. You can get a very nice condominium room for around $200 to $300 per month. Back in Europe, the only thing that would get me is probably a place to sleep under a bridge or something. And the next one is titled Act Like a Slumlord, I Will Leave Everything Looking Like a Slum. Once upon a time in a land far away, not really, but I've always wanted to start a story like that, but this is a long read. About 9 years ago, I had to find a new place to live, Sweet. I had been having problems finding a place to live due to certain difficulties. I would just say that sometimes it can be very difficult being a WOC in the south and leave it at that. A friend of mine told me that he was moving out of his apartment, 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath apartment, and said that he would put in a good word to his landlady. We met and she agreed to rent to me. At first it seemed like I had finally caught a break. I talked to my neighbors, a surveying company that rented the apartment next to mine, and a co-worker who lived near the end of the hall. They told me to be careful of her. I thought they were just trying to scare me into moving out because we were in the south after all, and it would not have been the first time that had happened to me, so I just ignored their warnings. The first rainstorm of the spring proved that they were not just trying to scare me. The ceiling leaked. I, along with the other tenants, asked her to fix it. She put a tarp on the roof as if that was supposed to fix anything. There were no less than 8 leaks in my ceiling, and eventually a piece of my ceiling actually fell. Luckily nobody was at home at the time, since the roof continued to leak, and that brought out, you guessed it, water bugs, namely roaches. The roaches got so bad they took over an entire cupboard. If you open it, a wave of the nastiest bugs in the existence of humankind would fall on you, and the "get them off me" panic dance would ensue. I sprayed, bombed, put down roach poison, everything I could do to get rid of them. They owned that cupboard, so we didn't use it. The building was supposed to have central heat and air, and I say supposed to because she refused to turn on the system. In the summer, we broiled in our apartments. In the winter, we froze. I had to buy heaters and dress my kids in layers, and we still froze. Not only that, but apparently the slumlord landlady did not realize that pipes could freeze if there was no heat in the building. Those were her exact words. Why, you may be asking, didn't I go to the health department report this slumlord? Well, I did. I was told they couldn't do anything about it, and if it is really that bad, I should move. If I could have afforded to move, I would have. In the state where I was living, you could withhold rent as long as you could prove you had made a good faith attempt to contact the landlord to get repairs done, so that is what I did. That got her attention fast, but she refused to fix anything. In November, she gave me an eviction notice. I contacted legal aid for some free legal advice. They said that she would have to take me to court if I showed all my evidence to a judge, and there was no way she could evict me. The eviction date came and went, nothing happened. She came by and tried to intimidate me into moving, nothing. She turned off the water, which is totally illegal, but luckily the half bath still had running water. She came by to beg me to move out, nothing. She did everything short of actually taking me to court because she did not want to pay to go to court. Plus, I'm pretty sure she knew she would lose. I lived in that crap-hole apartment rent-free for 6 months while I looked for a new apartment. I finally found an apartment. Thanks to all the money I saved from not paying her, I was able to come up with the rent. All this built up, and you are asking, where's the revenge? Well, here it is. I did not clean the apartment after we moved out. Not enough? I let my kids use the bathroom that did not have water. My son somehow broke the other toilet, so it stopped flushing. I piled trash in the middle of each and every room. I left old food in the fridge. After I shut the power off, I left the fridge open and managed to get the roach-infested cupboard open from halfway across the room so they could feast. By the time I was done, that apartment went from a crap hole to a dark, hot, nasty, noxious, hellish roach paradise. I will never know how she reacted to finding the apartment like that, but I like to think that she regretted trying to take advantage of me. And I have to admit, guys, that is a pretty solid revenge, even though it might not only affect the landlord, but probably also the other neighbors. I'm not sure if it is exactly possible, but I would believe that at least some of the roaches might spread to other apartments in the building, so that would be revenge taken too far for sure. And by the way, guys, if you have watched until here, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because we are really close to 29,000 subscribers, which in return means that we are really close to 30k, which has always been a long time goal for my YouTube channel. Thank you so much in advance, I really appreciate your support, and now let's move on to the next story. And the next one is titled, My driveway is not your guest parking. I saw another post on this sub that reminded me of a situation that happened last fall. I get off work at 11 PM and once I got home to find a neighbor's guest parked in my driveway. I thought about calling a tow truck, but I was hungry and tired, so I blocked them instead. I eat dinner and fall asleep around 2 AM. I heard someone pounding on my door around 5 AM and yelling about work, but I was too tired to care, so I ignored it and went back to sleep. If you're going to park in my driveway, you don't move until I feel like you deserve to. I heard more pounding and yelling around 7 and I ignored it again. I finally got up at 10 and I guess my neighbor saw me in the kitchen because he came over and started pounding on my door, yelling for me to move my car. Not my fault, your friends are stupid. I ignored him again and continued about my business. I left for work at 2 PM and my neighbor started yelling about how I was a stupid woman for parking where I did and it was my fault his friend was late for work. I'm standing there in scrubs trying to leave for my job at the hospital and I told him that his friend was lucky I didn't have their car towed and if I came home to a car in my driveway again, I was calling a tow truck. He got mad and was still standing there when I drove off. The car was gone when I got home and it has not happened since. Yeah guys, and I feel the OP did everything right here. Sometimes it is just vital to teach your entitled neighbor, or in this case his friends, a lesson. And the next one is titled, Today I ducked up by destroying my house and almost getting shot by the police. The day before my parents went off to Bora Bora, they told my brother and I not to invite 2 of our closest friends over because when we got together we always get into some kind of trouble. Being the good boys that we were, we promised them we would not invite our friends over. This was really the first time that my parents had left my brother and I alone at the house for more than a few days, so they really had to put their faith in us. After several days of them being gone, I suddenly realized that they would not have a clue if my friends came over while they were on such a remote island. I did not have to tell them anything while my brother was at work and I texted my friends and told them to come over to our house to wait for my brother to come home so that we could all do something together. I was halfway through the dark night when my friends came over, so we decided to finish that while we waited for my brother. My brother ended up getting a longer shift, so in our boredom we decided we wanted to prank him when he got home. My friend suggested that we move everything in his room 2 inches to the left to see if that would mess with him. I then got the bright idea that not only should we do that, but we should move everything in the house 2 inches to the left. After 1 room of this prank, we decided it was lame, so I came up with another idea. I told them, what if we flipped over everything in the house and made it look like the house got broken into so that my brother freaks out when he comes home? So we did just that. We turned over couches, beds and chairs, we broke light bulbs on the ground, we even took all of the valuable items in the house and placed them in my truck and then drove it around the block. Honestly, if we were trying to make a movie set of a house that got broken into, we nailed it. I opened the garage halfway to make it seem like someone had gotten in that way. I then turned off all of the lights and got out a super bright flashlight. I called my brother and told him that I would be staying with some family friends that night, so he would have to hold down the fort himself. My plan was when my brother opened the door, I would shine my flashlight in his eyes and then would run out of the garage and he would see all of the damage in the house and freak out for a minute. Then I would tell him it was all a joke. That is not what happened. When my brother got home, he called me and asked me if I had left the garage door open. I told him maybe and that he should just shut it when he got inside. He got pretty spooked by the entire house being completely dark and did not go in right away like I thought he would. Then I accidentally turned on the flashlight and he saw it. The moment he saw that, he called the police and told them our house was being robbed. I called him and told him it was just a prank. He said he had already called the police. I said, well, uncall them. But it was too late. My brother came in the house and we decided to clean the house up before they came, so it looked like we were not robbing the place. We knew we were host when we saw the blue and red lights in front of our driveway. The officers came up to the door and knocked super loudly and said to come out with our hands up. We obeyed them and then they told us to get on our knees in the front lawn. They told us that the guns they were pointing at us were loaded and that if we moved we would be shot. I was so scared that they would count the uncontrollable shaking of my body as moving, I told them, "It was all a prank, officer," and he yelled back, "I don't give a damn." He questioned us for about 15 minutes with the gun on us while his partner searched the house. After a while, our neighbor came outside and screamed, "No, don't shoot those boys, they are good kids." They questioned her for a while and finally told us that we were the stupidest effing kids alive and that they never wanted to come back to our house again. We thanked our neighbor for saving us and then went back to sleep, which really meant we were questioning every decision we have ever made. Definitely one of the dumbest things I've done in my life. And the next one is titled, "Check the property line before I build? Okie dokie." The cast is you, my uncle, and C, neighbor children. So, a few years ago, my uncle wanted to add an extension to the side of his house where his yard went around the side a bit. He asked the neighbor, who is actually a really lovely older man, who said, "Sure, feel free," and my uncle started to work. Unfortunately, the neighbor got ill and his demon seed, NC, started coming over, and when they saw that my uncle was building close to the neighbor's side yard, they were furious. They immediately asked him to stop, which my uncle did, and the NC insisted he was building on the neighbor's property. Now, my uncle is a really nice guy, so to avoid any issues he offered to buy the part of the yard he was going to extend to and offered a reasonable 5k for it. It was not that big of a patch, the demon NC got greedy and refused, so my uncle, being a gentleman, doubled it and offered 10k as he thought it was easier than going through the hassle of lawyers and property lines etc, but the NC still refused. NC: "You are crossing my dad's property line and you cannot build on it. Either give us more money or stop building. We want to sell this house when he's gone." Yup, they were waiting for the sweet neighbor to die so they can sell his house. Uncle: "I think 10k is fair enough. I'm not using up that much and it is still close to my part of the property." NC: "Nope, it's not. Check the property lines. You are way past our property line. Offer us more money or stop building." "Are you sure you don't want to take the money?" NC: "Not what you're offering. Check the property lines, love." Yep, we are British, sorry. So my uncle complied with their wishes, stopped all building work. It was on their property after all, or was it? This is where the malicious compliance comes in. He did exactly what the NC asked and got the original plans for both properties, still have no idea how, and checked the property lines to see how it was divided. Wouldn't you know it, he was not on their property line, they were on his. With a massive smile, my uncle went to the neighbors the next time the NC were around and kindly showed them the plans of the properties, clearly showing where their properties were divided. Their faces when they realized they had not only missed out on an easy 10k, they had in fact lost their dad about 1/4 of his yard, which was priceless. They had to move the fence and my uncle got to build his extension stress-free. Moral of the story, if you want to build and the neighbor's kids insist you should check the property lines, do it. You might just save some money and gain some land. And for your information, I worked in the NHS for a while and I am petty, so I have a lot of other stories if anyone is interested. And guys, unfortunately, we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching, please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.